Okay, good morning. And welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's in-person and online worship. Whether today is your first time here or you've been coming for years, we're so glad you're with us. My name is Mike Luce. I'm a member of the worship committee, which is putting on this service this morning. We're a growing community that transforms lives through the power of love. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel with care on this earth. Welcome also to those at home who are joining us on Zoom. If you're attending for the first time, please go to our website and fill out our welcome card so we can know more about you. This morning's service about democracy is the fifth principle, is presented by Allen Avenue's Worship Committee. Lay-led worship is a tradition at this and many other Unitarian Universalist societies. At Allen Avenue, the Worship Committee either co-sponsors or presents one such service a month. On most other Sundays, services are led by our minister, the Reverend Tara Humphreys. And I have one other announcement from Ann Packard. Found one woman's wallet. If you think it's yours, please see Ann. Where is Ann? There she is, right there. If you're in the sanctuary this morning, we invite you to take this opportunity to silence your cell phone so that you can be fully present. We're so glad you've joined us. After the service, please join us for coffee and conversation outside today for sure. And now, let us center our hearts and minds with the ringing of the chime.
Hi, I'm Susie Hubley, and I'm a member of the Worship Committee. And our chalice lighting words are those of Melanie Davis, and this is called A Spark of Hope. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
Good morning, I'm Anna Noyes-Benoit, also on the Worship Committee. Our call to worship is a prayer by Tess Baumberger. Spirit of freedom, as we prepare to elect new citizens to lead us in our communities, towns, and cities, in our counties, states, and in our heart-torn nation, grant us wisdom and discernment so that we may choose those of peaceful heart, of competent mind, and servant spirit. Spirit of harvest, help us winnow the grain from the chaff and to reap the legacy of freedom our founders planted in all of us. Help us to gather together as one people, united in concern for this country, founded on such promising ideals. Spirit of healing, grant that we may bridge the breaches that have opened between us. Help us to understand one another, to listen to the stories of who we are, and to find common ground on which we may move forward together. In the spirit of wisdom, of the harvest, and of healing, let us join in worship together. And now please stand in body or spirit to sing together hymn 170 in the gray hymnal.
And I'm Keith Prairie from the Worship Committee, and I want to ask anybody who is a child at heart to come forward and listen to the lesson for all ages. This is a book called Equality's Call. And, yep, it's up there, good. Our founders declared when our country began that consent of the government was part of the plan. Through voting elections and representation, the voice of the people would strengthen our nation. In fact, though, for years, this great founding idea was extended to some, but for others not real. But we heard in the distance equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. The states set the rules about who got to vote, and your gender, your race, and your wealth were of note. White men with property went to the polls, but the rest of the people were let off from the rolls. The dream of democracy wasn't yet true. There were challenges to make. There was work still to do. But we heard growing clearer equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. The rules about wealth were the first thing to go, as more were enfranchised, their voices could grow. And a small group of voices was raising the fact that enslavement was wrong, an unspeakable act. Good people stood up for the truth that they knew. Abolition and suffrage were long overdue. We heard ever louder equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. There was war in our nation and slavery ended. Amendments were added, the franchise extended. And I think there's another page in there. It's a brand new book, the pages stick together. Now more men could vote, at least so the law said, yet denial through taxes and tests was widespread. And the voices of women were mostly omitted. In only some states was their voting permitted. But nothing could muffle equality's call. A right isn't right until it's granted to all. Suffragettes didn't give up on the fight, and the 19th Amendment gave women the right. But voters of color still met with oppression. Their voting was hindered by brutal suppression. So we passed legislation to make voting fair, to extend and protect voters' rights everywhere. We heard it, we felt it, equality's call. A right isn't right till it's granted to all. The journey is not over. The work hasn't ended. Democracy's dream must be constantly tended. But where we are now is a debt that we owe to the work of more people than ever will know. And each time we vote, we acknowledge that the past. We honor our rights to ensure they will last. For to vote is to answer equality's call, and each time we vote with them all. Equality's call. So Emily is off today, and we're going to do the lamp lighting.
My name is Sonia Tonelli, and Edel will be our lamplighter today.
In a few moments, some of us will leave the sanctuary to enjoy religious education programming. But first, I invite our lamplighter to join me at the pulpit. A lamplighter is entrusted to transfer the light of the sanctuary chalice to the what's this called? The map? Huh? The lamp. There's a typo. The typo here, and it says map, and I'm going, what? What? That's not right. And then to go forth to the RE spaces where they will light the chalices there. I invite those going to RE to follow the lamplighter as we carry the flame, expanding our sacred space. We will sing "Carry the Flame" as they go to RE.
Morning again. I'm still Mike Luce. Title of my reflection is Making It Work. I guess it's not surprising that I've been thinking a lot about democracy lately, what with the relentless attacks from so many directions nationally. There seems to be a concerted effort to destroy our trust in elections, and trust is essential. We're choosing people to make decisions for us. Having a covenant is an essential part of establishing that trust in the UU Church. Even though we haven't made much of it until recently, it's been largely understood and felt in general, I think. There doesn't seem to be anything like it nationally. To me, that's the difference. It's the essential difference. Of course, even among us, it doesn't always work perfectly, but when it doesn't, that trust backs us up in efforts to repair. Now, I don't follow UUA politics at all, but I was at least aware of the recent issues which rose to the surface. And while I'm pretty cynical in my expectations of institutional intentions generally, in this case, not quite so much as I watched, at least from a distance. Why? Well, because of the other leg of the fifth principle, the explicit acknowledgement of being guided by our conscience. In general, I trust that people are trying their best, stumbling at times, but with good intentions. As to our own local democracy, right here, it's one really of the willing hands. I can't remember controversy over candidates selected by the nominating committee. The nominating committee, bless them, find willing minds and hands to fill the offices of the church, and we vote in approval. Every time. Mostly we're just glad and relieved that someone stepped up. I know I am. I also know that people are here because we share some basic principles which give me comfort and assurance. There are and have been differences among us. Over the years, use of the G word has waxed and waned. Personally, though the word is really more of a metaphor for me anyway, I never agreed with the need to eliminate or replace it. I'm not a fan of banning words generally. That said, or unsaid, I sang hymns, sometimes with awkward changes because that was what we were doing. Then slowly it started reappearing. Some mysterious, slow-moving tidal consensus develops and redevelops. Remember lava lamps? Think back to what our various Unitarian and Universalist churches believed back when, and we're still feeling our way along. I think the core that makes democracy and freedom of conscience work for us beyond that mutual trust, the covenant, is that everyone seems to me to have an inner humility about what we know and feel. We make room for each other. We move with each other, or at least move over a little bit. The central thing which drew me here was a lack of a creed. That's a silent admission that we don't have the key to life, the universe, and everything. That we do our best with our own conscience and by listening to the wisdom of those on the road alongside of us. Actually, the answer is 42, for those of you who know what that means.
In these troubling times, we ask for the courage to stand up for what we believe in, to know that we cannot just sit idly by and hope that things on their own will change. Instead of spiraling into despair and rage, we ask that we channel our anger into solutions that focus on the fundamental good that is in all people. In seeking justice that uplifts the oppressed, in finding freedom from insecurity, want, and fear. Let us not fall into the trap of condemning those who don't agree with our worldview. May we recognize that they are acting out of fear and insecurity as much as we often are. Let us continue our justice work by encouraging others to vote and participate in the democratic process that we hold so dear, and to make sure that we show up in whatever capacity we can. Let us know that without love, there is nothing at stake, nothing to fight for. Let love guide our actions and give us courage to do what is right for ourselves and each other, both on a local and global level. Blessed be, and amen.
This is called Hold On. It's written by Robin Tanner. And although it was written just after the 2016 election, its message speaks to me as powerfully now as it would have back then, maybe even more so, because now we've been through 6 years of extreme polarization and fear for our nation's future. Hold On by Robin Tanner. Well, the only chains we can stand are the chains between hand and hand. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. Those are adapted lyrics to Gospel Plow, attributed to Alice Wine. The camera gazes up at a blue sky where a trapeze artist, flying through the air, holds her arms out to be caught by the catcher, also on a trapeze. Holding on does not come easily to me. As a teenager who left home and bounced around, I'm talented at escaping. I can evade like the best of them. I can avoid people who speak truth that's packaged in less than pretty paper. I can leave when the words are ones I do not like. I can hit the road when it gets real. There are millions of reasons to head to Canada right now, but, my beloved, what was once necessary is now a mechanism of privilege. Leaving is a privilege that can kill, and loving does not let go. For those with the privilege to escape, we are exactly the ones we have been waiting for, ones made for a time such as this, gifted with all that we need to hold on. I'm not moving to Canada. I'm not building a blanket fort. I'm not blaming disenfranchised voters for this election. I am not mandating the proper peaceful response. Instead, for maybe the second time in my life, I'm truly holding on. Hold on, it's a mantra for my white girl self. I'm keeping my eyes on the prize of a land where we the people is more than a broken promise of once and long ago. I'm going to show up. I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to show up again. I'll hold on with a small safety pin attached to my lapel. Hold on to listen for the story, the pain, the promise, beneath the labels. Hold on into the night. Hold on in the streets and during the Sunday service. I'm holding on, remembering a night in Charlotte not too long ago when before my eyes, a police officer raised his baton to a young black man who spoke truth with arms raised. I'm holding on, remembering the queer black leader as they faced the baton and did not waver. I'm facing the 53% of white women who voted for the KKK endorsed candidate. I'm loving the hell out of this country, hoping it's enough to hold on. Prayer, beloved one, hold the pain and the fear, hold the dream and the fury, hold us as we hold one another. Call us into being with a love that does not let go. Thank you.
I am Rick Kimball, and I rise to ask you for any money you have left. After responding to all those political begging of the past several months. We are a freely gathered, open and welcoming faith community supported by our own contributions. Each week, 1/3 of our offering is given away to a nonprofit organization whose mission aligns with our UU principles. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Preble Street. Now, Preble Street's mission is to provide accessible, barrier-free services to empower people experiencing problems with homelessness, with housing, with hunger and poverty, and to advocate for solutions to those problems. This congregation has long supported Preble Street. Pre-pandemic, many of us went once a month to help serve in the soup kitchen. And Preble Street was nominated by Carolyn Marsden. Excuse me. Donations can be made now as the basket is passed through the donate button on our website. And if you are a member on Breeze, if giving through Breeze, please note if the donation is your pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate. You may also mail a check directly to the church. If you are visiting us for the first time this morning, please know that your presence is a gift to us. At this time, our offering will be collected and gratefully received. My reflection this morning is called Whitman Wisdom. As a teenager, I once ordered an ice cream cone with 17 different scoops. I wasn't even very hungry. But I suffered from the Walt Whitman syndrome. I was large. I contained multitudes, each of which demanded a different flavor. I was also a mess, because 15 of the scoops melted before I could lick the first 2 from the top. That little story reveals what is wrong with the UU fifth principle. It speaks of our congregation. Excuse me. It is fate that clogs the voice just as one is about to stand up in front of the people. So anyway, that little story reveals what is wrong with the UU fifth principle. It speaks of our congregations and our society at large, but it ignores the democratic demands of ourselves. Democratic processes are like belly buttons. There are innies and outies. Others are speaking of the outies this morning, so let's concentrate now on the innies. We are all large. We all contain multitudes of voices, each sounding different thoughts. Our supermind or ego, or is it soul, must moderate the voices and superintend the voices as they tangle and clash and debate along the path to a decision by popular vote. This inner process is a source of democratic practice. It dates from the earliest days of thinking of deciding whether to hunt for Triceratops or Tyrannosaurus rex, or maybe go vegan. Forget those stories you learned in school about Greece as the birthplace of democracy. You are the birthplace of democracy. I am the birthplace of democracy. Ever human, ever born is the birthplace of democracy. And in these truths lie proof that democracy and its attendant processes are essential to human life. So essential that democracy must and ultimately will survive. All of us are large. All of us contain multitudes, and all of us at our best make critical decisions by democratic poll of the many voices within. Now, some people, not at their best, fail. Among the losers are addicts of various sorts. The heroin addict hears one voice drowning all others out and opts for any action that provides more dope. The Trump addict decides by whatever the big guy says, even though he too contains multitudes, and lets different ones speak out triumphantly, squelching all others, the loudest changing by the minute, by the hour, by the day, and escaping the Trumpian mouth. But I speak not just of Trump. We should give our blind allegiance to no leader of any sort in the nation, in the state, in the city, in the church, and even in the home. We should listen instead to our own inner voices working things out. But please, do feel free to agree with me at any time. Most of us do fairly well with all this. We have to. We hear all our voices even when we're not sure we wish to. We let them clash. We let them reason. We let them argue things out until a democratic choice, often a compromise, wins the vote within, the innie voice, and emerges as the voice of the multitudinous self, now speaking as one, now ready to join the outie debate around political, social, and moral issues. We become familiar with the multitude of inner voices very early in life, knowing the one which strives for independence and the one that wants to cling to mom and dad, knowing the one that wants butterscotch and the one that wants pistachio, knowing the one that leans right and the one that leans left. We all suffer the shock of change at adolescence as new voices join our turmoil, the newly released hormonal voices of sexual hope and need. We all come as we mature to recognize and offer to suffer the symptoms of Walt Whitman's syndrome. We have mixed minds, we say. We struggle with ambivalence and ambiguities. Ambi, we feel doubt, and we say that things are as clear as mud. But then we learn the inner democratic process. We experiment and slowly discover how to work things out. Our supermind or ego, or is it soul, superintends our torn selves until the healing democratic process within soothes and even saves us, blessing us with our self-made right decisions. Think of the voices telling you how to use your time this Sunday morning, and remember the democratic process that brought you here. The voice that said to stay home and rake leaves was voted down. So congratulate yourself. You have converted the Walt Whitman syndrome to something useful. You have made a good decision and fed your conscience along the way. Well, we could go on and on about decision-making, but perhaps you don't need that. Your presence here suggests that your supermind can lead your disparate thoughts and feelings to conclusion and to action. You know what you're doing. You can continue demonstrating your process and your prowess in a voting booth on Tuesday, bringing your any produced decisions into the Audi democratic process described by our fifth UU principle. Let there be democracy on earth, and let it begin with me, with multitudinous democratic me, and multitudinous democratic you. Blessed be.
My name is Erica Bartlett, and I'm sure I learned the 5th UU principle, which is about the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, when I was in the religious education program here at A2U2. But to be honest, I didn't pay much attention to it. I couldn't vote, after all, and as someone who cared a lot about the environment, the 7th principle, with its focus on the interconnected web of life, was more my speed. But at some point in high school, when Bush Sr. was president, I started paying more attention to politics. I wasn't a political junkie like my dad and others in his family, but I realized I'd be able to vote soon and needed to know at least something about the issues. I also knew how hard women had fought for the vote, and I wanted to honor their work by making sure I voted. But that was pretty much all I did. For many years, I continued that way, paying some attention and voting in every election, but not getting involved outside of that. I didn't think I needed to. As a young adult, it never occurred to me that the use of the democratic process in society at large could be in danger. Not here, in the United States of America, a country founded as a democracy. Like many, I've come to realize just how wrong I was over these past few years. In the 2020 election, I knew much more was at stake than the presidency. That's why I decided to get more involved for the first time. The tricky part was finding the best way to participate. I'm in no way an extrovert, so canvassing and doing phone banks wasn't for me. But somewhere along the way, I learned about Vote Forward, which asks volunteers to send handwritten letters to encourage voting. And I knew I'd found a good fit. Writing is something I'm good at, and I was happy to find a way to use that. So in 2020, I joined over 200,000 other volunteers for Vote Forward, writing letters to historically underrepresented communities, explaining why voting was important to me and asking them to vote as well. I personally wrote and sent 100 letters to people across the country, including some in Maine. And based on Vote Forward analysis, all our letters resulted in 126,000 people voting who wouldn't have otherwise. It's not a huge number, but it's also not insignificant. I don't know how much of an impact that had in the 2020 election, but I was relieved by the election results and glad to have played some part, even if a small one. But since then, it's become very clear that the use of the democratic process in the US is on life support, and rights that we took for granted are being stripped away or threatened. That's why even though midterm elections aren't always considered as significant, in this case, I think they are. I tend to agree with how Eugene Robinson of the Washington Post explained it in a recent column. Quote, "The nation faces the most important midterm elections of my lifetime. This year, the choice is between our democracy as we know it, messy, incremental, often frustrating, and a hard-edged pejorative populism fueled by resentment, misogyny, and racism. To have any hope of building a better future, we must make a stand here." So with that in mind, I got out my pen again and wrote 150 letters for Vote Forward, and I know others in the church have done quite a bit as well. All told, writers for Vote Forward sent over 4.5 million letters for this election. I've also written a couple of letters to the editor encouraging voting, particularly voting for those who will focus on climate change and help preserve our rights. Writing for democracy isn't big or splashy, but it's something I'm good at and something I know I'll do. And these days, with so much at stake, I think we all need to lean into our strengths to live up to our principles and show our support for democracy while we still can. And I invite you to join us now for our closing hymn. It's number 1014 in the Teal hymnal. But note that we are using the updated lyrics, Answering the Call of Love. And please rise, embody your spirit.
We extinguish our chalice with faith that the flame of hope, love, peace, and justice will be with us as we exercise our right to vote. May the light of our individual and collective conscience guide our participation in the democratic process, both in our congregation and in our society.